शुक्लां वरदरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नमुपशान्तये दक्षिणामूर्तिसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। गणपति बप्पा जय श्री राम। Okay, so we assembled after a break last Sunday. So what happens after Guru Purnima? Once your Chaturmas starts, the entire festival season start off, right? I mean, from Nag Panchami to Raksha Bandhan to Naradi Purnima, we Tamilians, South Indians generally have this day on which we change the sacred thread. So Janehu, that gets changed on Raksha Bandhan day. Tomorrow is Krishna Janmashtami, so warm wishes on all for all the festivals that went and that are going to come. There are too many festivals to cover. So it's all festival season, and of course then the Ganesh Chaturthi, the 10 days mega event, then followed by Navratri and Diwali. So three big festivals are coming up. So best wishes to all of you all. 27th happened to be the Jayanti day of Tembe Maharaj, Vasudevananda Saraswati, a very great saint, a contemporary to Gajanan Maharaj and Sai Baba, considered to be an avatar of Dattatreya himself. Not many know him, but those followers are very, very staunch followers for him. So a great saint. Baba had once called him as his own brother. So at that level is where Tembe Maharaj is. Those who belong to Marathi community might know there is this Karuna Tripadi, right? It's basically three different prayers, okay, which asks for grace and which asks for Karuna from Datta Maharaj. That was written by Tembe Maharaj. That was written by Tembe Swami. So the Karuna Tripadi was his blessings to us. Okay, his Jayanti apparently was on 27th. I didn't know. One of my friend rang me and told me yesterday. So I thought I'll just share that as well. We had left Fibishna in mid-air last 2 weeks back. So my brother-in-law immediately after the session he called back and he says not appropriate to keep him mid-air. He might run out of fuel within a week. So we should probably allow him to land. And so we kind of, without your permission, had allowed him to land, and so he's beyond the immigration point, so he's still not allowed into it. And thank God we allowed him to land because we had a gap of 2 weeks, so he surely wouldn't have survived that long. Okay, jokes apart. So that is where we had left the last time story. We had very briefly covered about Sharanagati, the importance of total surrender, okay? And how the Vaishnavas view it, or how the others, the Smarthas, view it. Technically, as we had discussed, Sharanagati or total surrender forms the bedrock. It's the prerequisite for Bhakti. So Bhakti sets in only when you really have started to surrender yourself, and then it kind of ripens to the best when the surrender is total, right? And we saw a few examples like Kalyan Goswami, the kind of surrender that he did to Samartha Ramdas. The way Eknath Maharaj did seva to his guru, right? We saw all of that. The benefit of Sharanagati or the concept of the doctrine of Sharanagati is so beautiful that it gives us, the common people, the kind of people that we are, the kind of sinners, the amount of sin that we do, it gives us a hope that in spite of having done thousands of mistakes and sins, we still have a hope for redemption. Right? Because that's what gods are. Gods are Karunamurti. They are not here to punish. So we generally come with this view that we do this, God will be angry. God is not to get angry at all. Why will God get angry? When does a mother get angry? Never, right? In spite of we being so bad and ill-behaved, children being so ill-behaved, mothers don't get angry at all. Right? God is the Adima. Right? It's the first mother, the full of Karuna. They never get angry at all. We get punished by our own karma, right? It comes as a prarabdha which comes and hits us. He only relieves us out of that. That is what he does. So when we fall at his feet, when we take total surrender, he out of compassion ensures that we are redeemed out of our sins. Right? So when I told this to my son, like when I told examples like Valmiki or Purandara Dasa or Pundalika himself, people who in the same birth, who kind of were sinners, who did a lot of wrong things, but the moment they realized that what is more important is to attain divinity, and once they went on that path, God gave them darshan and ensured that they were redeemed completely and they became saints. Today we have Vithala because of Pundalika, it is called as Pundalika Varade Vithala. Right? Purandara Dasa was such a great saint. Those days he had apparently 9 crores, that was his total wealth. And the day the Vairagya clicked in, he just left his house open and walked away. Complete Vairagya, complete sannyasi in one stroke. We've seen the story of Valmiki as well, right? So when I told this story to my son was very happy. He said, okay, which means nobody's going to punish me for mistakes. I'll keep on doing mistakes. And when I really am kind of at the fag end of my life, I'll do Sharanagati and all my issues are redeemed. Well, it is really not that easy. Okay, it is really not that easy because when we keep doing mistakes, we keep doing sins, we are immersed into the 6 vices, the Kama, Krodha, Moha, Lobha, Mada, Matsarya, all the six vices. We are so much immersed into it that it becomes very difficult to get rid of it in the last moments. So it's a continuous practice, and it's not a practice of few days, weeks, months, years. Could go even into births. It can even actually translate to efforts that one has to put across births, so that we are then devoid of these 6 vices. Out of which one vice is the most critical, which is the last to fall. I have probably covered this in the stories of saint. Ego, mother, is the one which is the toughest one to release. Okay, the best of the saints, the best of the sannyasis, okay, might still have a slight ego in them, and that will ensure that they don't get moksha. That is the reason you need Sadgurus, who will guide you through the path. Even Hanuman himself apparently had ego. Only when he met Sita and he came back is the time that last wing of ego left out, and he then became, from Ramaduta Hanuman, he became Ramadasa Hanuman, which is what we also saw. And why it is difficult? Because if we keep doing sin, we become Ravana, right? That is the whole story. We keep doing something wrong, who we become Ravana. We keep doing the right, we move towards becoming Rama. Ravana was told constantly, right, that you don't do this is wrong. He also at some point of time realized that what he is doing is wrong, but he couldn't mend his ways. Why? Because his ego came in between. Right? So because his ego started coming in between, he could not mend his ways. So doing Sharanagati is not that easy at all. It takes a lot of time. There's a very beautiful, so I was actually kind of struggling to try and give some example of what actual Sharanagati or what total surrender would mean. And I was kind of doing a rehearsal in the morning today for today's session, and I kind of just stumbled upon a very good poem. I've heard it a lot of time, but there's a very beautiful stanza. Okay, this poem, this Bhakti Geet has been written by, sorry, I'm just spending a few moments on Sharanagati because the doctrine of Sharanagati is the crux of Ramayana. Okay, the fact that we have to surrender ourselves to Ram is the whole essence of Ramayana. And hence allow me to kind of spend a few moments on that. I didn't want to kind of hurry into it. So this is a beautiful Bhakti Geet by a poet called B.B. Borkar, a Goan poet. I think he is a Padma Shri awardee, and 1984, 1985 I guess he passed away. He wrote a very good Bhakti Geet which was later on sung by Pandit Jitendra Abhisheki. Few of you all might have heard this. I'll take that, I'll kind of narrate that and then also try and explain as to how Sharanagati comes into play. This is a little difficult kind of a poem, okay? A poem which requires a lot of effort in understanding the meaning. So when I had heard, I had not understood it at all. It completely had gone bouncer. Then I went through it, then I kind of researched the meanings, and there are a lot of people who have tried to write a meaning to it. Because the poet, what he has done is he's kind of taken, in order to put it into a poetic expression, there are a lot of things which are not explained. So one has to understand its premise for us to be able to then understand the poem per se. So having read all of that, then I kind of formed my own view on it. Okay, what I'm going to present is my humble view on this entire poem. So this is a poem which looks like a sannyasi, okay, a vairagi is now singing on his state of mind, his or her state of mind, okay, and he sings what? Because it's important for us to know what is there running in the mind of a saint. So it is like a saint singing what is there in his mind. And it says, Nahi punyachi mozani, it's a Marathi one, I'll anyway explain. Nahi punyachi mozani, nahi papachi tochani, nahi punyachi mozani, nahi papachi toचणी, जिने गंगा उग्याचे पाणी, कशाचा न लाग भाग, कशाचा न लाग भाग, कशाचा न पाठ लाग, आम्ही हो फुलांचे पराग, आम्हा नाही नाम रूप, आम्हा नाही नाम रूप, आम्ही आकाश स्वरूप, जसा निळा निळा धूप. This last stanza is critical, I'll explain it. पूजे तल्या पाना फुला, मृत्यू सर्वांग सोहळा, धन्य निर्माल्याची कळा, नाही पुण्याची मोजणी, नाही पापाची टोचणी. So what it means is, when you get complete vairagya, when you are completely detached, when you are completely renounced from the material world, whatever you do doesn't attach itself either to papa or punya. There is no counting of punya. No papachi mozani, nahi papachi mozani is counting. There can be no counting of the punya that a saint does, and there is no prick of the sins because there are no sins getting done. Nahi papachi tochani, jine gangau gyache pani. This is one sentence which I took a long time to understand. So what happens is, in a river bed, okay, the poet says in a river bed there are different kinds of stones. What happens is when river keeps flowing over it, the rough edges go smooth. They become so smooth that water just completely flows over it. Okay, no water gets stuck on it. Okay, so there is no attachment at all. It just simply smoothly flows over it. Jine Ganga ughyache pani. Here he refers to Ganga, okay, as a river. Kashacha na lag bhag. I don't feel part of anything. I don't get attached to anything. Kashacha na patha lag. I don't have any background. There is no baggage that I am carrying. Ami ho pulanse paraga, which means I am like a pollen of a flower. You know, what does a pollen of a flower does? In a split second, when it has to leave, when its moments come, it just leaves the flower, right? That's how pollination happens. That's how reproduction of flowers happen. It just leaves. It just detaches itself from its mother ground, right? Which is its flower. From its family, it just leaves without the slightest attachment. That is how a saint is. Ami ho, that is me, that's a saint. He's saying, I am like that pulanse parag, I am like that pollen. I can detach myself from anywhere immediately. Ama nahi nama rupa, there is no name, there is no form. Ami akasha swarupa, we are like the eternal sky, the formless sky. Jasa nila nila dhupa. What happens when you burn an incense stick, when you burn a dhoop, you can see the smoke, the dhoop that rises from there for a while, and then it kind of merges into the nowhere, right? Into the ether, just vanishes. It goes. You can't even realize where it is going, right? Into the thin sky. That is how saints are. They just kind of vanish into it. The last stanza. The reason why I was telling this poem is I was trying to find a simile, a kind of an example as to what total surrender means. पूजे तल्या पाना फुला, मृत्यू सर्वांग सोहळा, धन्य धन्य निर्माल्याची कळा. Now what does a flower do? Okay, a flower, in order to offer itself and completely as a total surrender, puje talya means at the feet of the god, to offer itself. What does a flower do? It kills itself, right? It kills itself. It comes out of its mother plant and offers itself totally to the feet of the god without the slightest of attachment. Puje talya pana phula. How is it celebrated? How is the death of a flower experienced? It is experienced with a celebration. When do we offer flowers? We offer flowers as puja. It's a matter of celebration in a festival, right? that surrender that flower does to the god is in a form of a celebration that we enjoy. Puje talya pana pula mrityu sarvanga sohara. The death of the flower is celebrated, right? That is the way surrender has to happen. Dhanya nirmalyachi kala. That pain of having separated, how does it end? Flower, today when you give flower, what happens to the flower the next day? It is thrown into the garbage, right? It becomes nirmalya, right? That pain that it has gone through is momentary, yes, in order to totally surrender and vanish. There is a beautiful word in Hindi, actually it's in Urdu, it is called as fana hona, right? It is completely submerging, completely forgetting of what you are, totally for the sake of somebody else. That is total surrender. This is exactly what Adi Shankar also in his Guru Ashtakam mentioned, Manas Chaina Lagnam Guru Rangri Padme Tatakkim, 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 Tatakkim. And he gives so many examples. He says, person can be rich, person can be a good-natured, person can even be a saint. But if his mind is not fixed, if his mind is not surrendered to the feet of the Guru, of what use it is? That is total surrender. Why did I cover all of this in detail? It's because what happens is, people generally say Vibhishana came from Ravana's place, he took Sharanagati and Rama accepted it. Was it that simple? No, it was not that simple. Vibhishana was a Vaishnava. He practiced penance, he practiced Vairagya for years. Right? For years he has been a devotee of Vishnu, and hence the day Ravana said, get out of my sight, he was able to denounce, he was able to renounce in a split second and walk away. It is this Vairagya that Vibhishana had, and it is this kind of epitome of surrender that Vibhishana did to Rama. And hence it is to be understood that what Vibhishana did was an excellent example of Sharanagati which we need to emulate. Now, why did I want to cover so much stress on Vibhishana? Covering, when you talk of bhakti, when you talk of devotion, you talk of Bhakta Prahlad, you talk of Hanuman, these are the real epitomes of, or Bharata, of bhakti. Why am I spending such a long time for Vibhishana, who also is a great devotee? It's because Vibhishana, unfortunately, has been tainted as a traitor. Right? Now, this is the common perception that all of us have. Somebody who has practiced Vairagya for years and has been able to do a total surrender to God himself, can he ever be a traitor? He can never be a traitor. Right? So the tag of traitor is what we are going to target in our second segment. So this is something that I covered last time also. So I'll be covering it in detail. So what Vibhishana did, a very common tag that is given to him is Ghar ka bhedi Lanka dhai. Right? So the person who split bhed, matlab secret, the person who has told the secret of the home to somebody who is outsider is the reason why Lanka fell. Okay? Partially true, nothing wrong. Vibhishana did share a lot of secrets with Rama which turned out to be critical in the war. We'll again come to that as well. You need to allow me a few moments to explain this. I will join the story back. I know Vibhishana is waiting. We will not get impatient about it. So there is something called as Laghu Dharma and there is something called as a Jyeshtha Dharma. Okay, Dharma is important. We need to adhere to it. There is no doubt about it. So what is a Laghu Dharma? A Laghu Dharma is son taking care of his father. Important. A student studying. Important. Part of the Dharma. Husband taking care of wife, wife taking care of husband, important. Friends, okay, your dharma towards your friend, your loyalty towards your employer, the person who is paying you for your services, you have to be loyal. It's an important trait, it's an important dharma. But all of these are called as Laghu Dharma, okay. When Laghu Dharma goes in contradiction, when it goes in conflict with the Jyeshtha Dharma is your dharma towards truth, your dharma towards justice. When your dharma towards truth and justice is in conflict with your Laghu Dharma, you are expected to choose the Jyeshtha Dharma, right? You can then not say that I will still choose my Laghu Dharma. That is the critical part here. Now let me explain this. Let us take examples of how different Puranic characters, how characters in our Puranas have behaved with regards to these two aspects of Laghu and Jyeshtha. Kumbhakarna. For Kumbhakarna, the relationship with his brother, he knew Ravana has done wrong. he did tell Ravana that you have done wrong. Well, you didn't ask when you had gone to abduct Sita. Now why do you even ask? It is wrong. You should have given back her long back. You shouldn't even have abducted her. Kumbhakarna says that. When Ravana's face falls, Kumbhakarna says, no, don't worry brother, I am going to stand with you. So what did he do? He chose his relationship of brother over justice and truth. That is one. Secondly, let's just skip quick to Mahabharata. What did Bhishma do? Bhishma thought his promise to his vow. Okay, why is Bhishma called Bhishma? Is because it is a Bhishma Pratigna, right? Devavrata was his name. The Pratigna that he took was so powerful that his name came to be as Bhishma. That is called as Bhishma Pratigna. Why? Because he thought his vow towards the throne, that he has to be associated with the throne, he thought that to be a more important dharma than standing by justice and truth. Right? Drona, he thought his dharma towards being loyal to the employer. Why? Because Hastinapur was his employer, right? They were the people who were paying him. He was a guru there. He was a Vidya guru there. So he thought that his loyalty towards employer, and hence he has to fight on their behalf, was more important than the dharma of truth and justice. Right? Karana, friendship. He thought his duty towards his friend was more important than standing on behalf of truth and justice. Now, in contrast to this four are two people. Vibhishana, who we all of us call traitor. Actually, he is the person who did the right thing. He thought, in his rightly, he thought that it is standing by the truth and justice is more important than standing by your brother. You give him enough chance. You tell him you are gone wrong, you can't do this. You give him enough chance. Once having said that, he is not listened, then you are supposed to stand by truth and justice. And the same example that comes in Mahabharata is Vidura. Vidura tries his best to tell to Dhritarashtra that you are doing the wrong, you are doing a mistake, you are not supposed to do this. When on the final day, just before the war starts, he says, my loyalty towards my employer ends here. I cannot stand, or I cannot even be seen to be standing by the side of adharma. I will be defecting to the side of dharma. He doesn't fight the war, but he goes on the other side. That's to the Pandavas camp. This is important, and I'll come. This is all in Puranas, right? That we are not able to quickly relate to these. Let me come to a today's story. All of us are aware of this superb Amitabh Bachchan picture called Diwar, right? Amazing movie. Anybody who's not watched must watch. Okay, amazing movie, beautiful script, amazing dialogues, superb movie. Okay, story of two brothers who have gone on opposite direction. Okay. So this is Amitabh Bachchan, who is a smuggler, and Shashi Kapoor, who is the cop. Now, when Shashi Kapoor comes to know that one of the persons in the list that has been published are the list of dons, it is his own brother, the police commissioner gives him a choice, saying that your brother is in the list. If you want to absolve yourself, you can. You can come out of that duty. I can assign this duty to somebody else. Shashi Kapoor chooses to remain in that duty, and it is at the hand of Shashi Kapoor that Amitabh Bachchan dies. I mean, character. Okay. This story was written by Salim Javed. Even Salim Javed, okay, knew what Jeshta Dharma is as against Laghu Dharma. It is important that we should also know it. Right? That is the reason I took that example. That relations important, yes. Friends important, yes. Duty towards employer important, yes. But all of that are adhama, which means they are next when compared to the dharma of standing by justice and truth. This is what Vibhishana did. So Vibhishana actually did the right thing, and it would be an injustice on our part to call him as a traitor. Okay, I just want to quickly cover on that particular point. And the these are all sukshma dharma, okay, dharma sukshma. They are all subtle part of the dharmas, and only saints and only avatar can actually take it and explain it to us. And that is the reason I thought I should cover this as a part. Now, having covered all of this, now will come. Poor Vibhishana is waiting, so Rama rushes to him. Rama is already upset that I took so much time to explain all this background and I wasted the minutes. Okay, so Rama is now rushing, immigration point crossed, and Vibhishana completely plunges into Rama's feet. And he says, Prabhu, I have come to your feet and to take refuge. Please accept me. Rama picks him lovingly and embraces him. And Rama says, from today onwards we are 7 and not 6. So what is that? Basically, Rama are 4 brothers, right? Rama, Bharata, Lakshmana, Shatrughna are 4 brothers. When they met Guha, the Kevat, the boatman, they became 5. Rama embraces him and says, from today onwards we are 5. We are not 4, we are 5 brothers. When he meets Sugriva, he says, from today onwards we are 6. And when he meets Vibhishna, he says, today onwards we are 7. This is there in Kamba Ramayana. Okay? So this is where Kamba says, Rama says that from today onwards we are 7 and I am not just 6. Now Rama says, even before you utter anything, Vibhishna, this is what I am promising. I will promise to make you a king of Lanka, and I will end up doing the Rajyabhishek, the coronation of Vibhishna. So they actually do at the beach, at the seashore itself, they do a coronation of Vibhishna. So this is like what we see in today's world, government in exile. Sometimes the government, like what's happening in Afghanistan, right? So India necessarily doesn't recognize the Taliban government. So suppose Ghani was to go out to UAE and say, I am still the original government, and if India recognizes that government, it's called as a government in exile. Okay, that's there even in today's diplomatic discussions. So what Rama does is, Rama says, I do not recognize Ravana as the king. He says, I recognize you as the king of Lanka. You might be a king in exile as of today, but I don't recognize him as the king. I recognize you. That is what Rama has done. Okay, like what Indian government is doing for Afghan. So now Vibhishna says, because you've done this to me, this is what I promise. I'll promise all the support that I can. I will share all the information that I have with me, which will help you in winning Sita back. If there is a war, all my secrets will be open. I'll ensure that you're aware of everything. And this promise, of course, Vibhishna lives up to it and turns out to be the most critical help that comes to Rama, and one of the reasons why the war was won. Allow me again a 2-minute break. Let me kind of take this also. So the common perception that people have is, well, Rama couldn't have won the war at all. It was because Sugriva helped, and somebody like Vibhishna came and gave so many secrets, right? I thought Ram kahan pe? He couldn't have won the war at all. So for starters, very clearly one important thing, Rama could have won any war. Okay? It is a leela. It is a sport. It is a divine sport he's playing. He shows that help is important. He's showing us that sometimes you have to take outside help to establish dharma. That is all it is. Rama had killed 14,000 people at Janasthan in split second. Okay? It doesn't take time. We'll come to the next story also, how we left an arrow which went 2,500 kilometers away. I'll come to that story also later. So Rama could have done a lot of things. He could have stood there and killed Ravana also. Okay? But that is on the faith front. Right? That is from a devotional aspect. That is from an emotional aspect. From a practical aspect also, it is wrong to say only because of Vibhishna it happened. Why did that help from Vibhishna came? Why did that help from Sugriva came to Rama? I'll try and take an example. Why is it that Rama got that help, or why is it he got the help from Sugriva? Is because of this. So we do come across a lot of difficulties in our lives, right? When you are a married man, a person, or going through education or whatever, we do have problems in life, and there are times when we have help coming from outside, out of nowhere. Suddenly a person comes, helps and goes, and suddenly we find that help is of such immense value, right? We are going through a rough patch. Out of nowhere a friend comes, school friend or a college friend whom we have lost touch completely, and suddenly he will come, or a neighbor of our previous house, suddenly he will come, or she will come and then offer a particular help which turns out to be very valuable. Now why? What is it that has happened, or why is that such a help kind of flows in? Is because at some point of time we have done some good to others without expecting anything in return, right? So what God does, when we are in trouble, God ensures that similarly we also kind of get help, right? Rama lived his entire life helping others, right? It's an investment in life. When I keep saying to youngsters that you have to be good and you have to be genuinely good is because at some point of time when we need, God will ensure that that particular help comes to us without any expectation, right? Rama lived all his life helping others. Rama was a Purvabhashi and a Midubhashi, which means he used to speak softly without hurting in a manner that nobody will get hurt, and genuinely he used to do that and not a facade. He helped so many rishis. When he was in Aranyakand, there was no duty for him to help those rishis against the demons, but he did that without any expectation. All of that good that he did had to be paid back. God can't still sit quiet, right? Forget Rama is God. I'm saying even if he was just a man, God had to pay him back. And when Rama required the help, he sent Sugriva, Hanuman and the entire gang of Vanaras, and he also sent Vibhishna. So the help that came to Rama was out of Rama's action of being a great person, a Purushottama all his life. And hence God thought it only proper that he should send somebody to help him. That help was critical, yes, but it was out of a reaction to what Rama did all his life. I thought I'll quickly cover on that. So having said that, so there was actually a good upakatha, okay, to this. So somebody, it seems, one of the, I think Sugriva or Jambavan asks Rama, now that you have coronated Vibhishna, if Rama comes and does, Ravana comes and does Sharanagati, what is it that he will do? Okay, so what is it that he will do? So Rama, without blinking an eye, he says, I will give my Koshala Rajya to him. I will make him the king of Koshala Rajya. Bharata will not mind coming to forest with me. Without even asking Bharata, I will give my entire Koshala Rajya to Ravana. That is the kind of Karuna that Rama represented. Okay, this is an Upakatha. I think probably it is there in Kamba Ramayana. So all of this has happened. Vibhishna has been accepted into the gang, and now there are discussions that are happening. One point which I missed, when all of this was actually happening, Ravana, what he does is, he calls for the chief of his intelligence bureau, call it RAW, no, call it ISI, I think that is better, enemy wing, right? So chief of ISI, he calls him, and that his name is Suka, okay? He calls him and he says, see, just as my brother has defected from me, why don't you kind and go and cause a defection on Rama's camp also? You tell Sugriva, Vali has been my friend, and we've been friends for a very long time. You should take your army and go away. Then Rama and Lakshmana will be alone. So the Shuka comes. He comes and kind of secretly meets Sugriva in his camp, and he starts saying, "This is what I've come from Ravana, and you need to. Why don't you kind of take your army and go? I mean, we all can be friends. We can probably give a larger piece of land or something." Sugriva says, "You don't even know what Rama is. You don't know my loyalty towards Rama. I think you don't even get into all this." So he kind of drives him out. The moment he walks out, there is a small altercation. Sugriva is shouting. Vanaras outside realize that Sugriva is shouting, and then Shuka falls out, comes out of the tent, and they catch hold of him, and they're about to kill him. Rama intervenes, and he says, "No, he's doing a duty on behalf of." Sorry, I'm kind of going at a little pace because otherwise I'll not be able to finish the story, right? So Rama says, "No, you're not supposed to kill him because he's doing his duty, right? He's come here on behalf of Ravana, and he's just doing his duty. So you just let him go, right? Isko ba izzat bari kar do." Ba izzat means with izzat. Be izzat means without. Urdu is a beautiful language. I mean, all languages have their own beauty attached to it. So they say ba izzat bari kar do. Sare sabuton ko madde nazar rakhte hue. That's the Bollywood dialogue that all courtroom dramas that we see. So Shuka is released. The Shuka goes back and is very happy. He's very ecstatic because he was about to lose his life, right? He goes back and he meets Ravana. And when Ravana meets him, he says, "Why? What happened?" The first thing, what he's supposed to say, he's supposed to say, "No, I couldn't defect Sugriva." The first thing he says, "I met Rama. What a beautiful human being he is. And he's such a beautiful, he's so much of karuna, he's so much of compassion. I was about to get caught. And he came and he kind of released me completely. He's truly a Purushottama." Ravana is very upset. He said, "What are you doing? Tum kiske taraf ho? Mere taraf ho? Uske taraf ho?" So he's saying, "What are you doing?" So this is not right. So he's saying, no, but you should really listen. You should let go of Sita because they are a real strong pack of people. Ravana says, "No way, just get out." So Shuka is driven away. Means goes back to his home. Now these guys are discussing. So this is a small portion that happens. Now all of these people are discussing as to how do you cross the entire span of ocean, right? The huge ocean that lays ahead of them. Now Rama, Sugriva, Jambavan, Vibhishna, everybody is discussing how do we cross. Of course, the first thought that comes is Hanuman, you grow in your size, everybody sits on him and he crosses. Not feasible. How many rounds will he do, right? There are 70,000 Vanaras. It's not feasible, not practical. So Rama says, no, we need to have a better way of doing it. So Sugriva says, Jambavan says, why don't you request the king of Samudra, Samudra Raja, right? Samudra is sea. Samudra Raja to let go, give us a pathway, to cross. Either freeze for a while, we'll walk over you, or we kind of split, we'll walk on the seabed and then kind of cross. Rama likes this idea. He says, okay, so let us do that. So how do you get Samudra Raja? So you have to do a small penance. So Rama sits on a penance. He does penance for 3 full days. Doesn't eat anything. 72 hours fasting. Doesn't eat anything. Doesn't drink anything. He sits. And at the end of the 3 days, Samudra Raja still doesn't come. Okay? So Rama, you have to understand, is very impatient. He's become very impatient because he's now very close to meeting Sita, right? So he's also behaving human. He's getting frustration. He's getting angry. And in that moment of anger and frustration, he gets up in full anger. And he says, now I'm going to kill Samudra Raja because he's not paying heed to my prayer. He's not paying heed to my request. He's not even coming out to meet me. Out of this, he calls to Lakshmana and says, go get my bow and arrow. Okay? So this is there in, I think, either in Kamba Ramayana or I don't know in which Ramayana this is. Okay? No, I think this is there probably in the Paduka Sahasram by Vedanta Deshikar. Vedanta Deshikar is another great saint who's followed by the Visishtha Dvaitas, okay, the Vaishnavas. So Vedanta Deshikar in the Paduka Sahasram, he has written this particular story. Okay, so he says Lakshmana first gets a very small arrow. Rama is upset. What are you doing? Get me a proper arrow. I have to kill Samudra Raja. So he gets a little more longer arrow, and he gets upset. Lakshmana says, what are you doing? Get me a proper arrow. Why is Lakshmana doing that? Vedanta Deshikar gives the reason. Okay, he says there are 2 people against which Rama can't fight and will get defeated. Okay, one is Rama Nama. Okay, that person who has Rama Nama. So there was actually a war between Hanuman and Rama, which happens later on. I will not get into the details. Rama gets defeated. Why? Because Hanuman is not fighting. Hanuman is only chanting Ram Naam. So जो राम भी नहीं कर सकता वो राम नाम कर सकता है. That is what it is. Okay, so Rama can't work against Ram Naam. The other aspect against which Rama will get defeated is Rama Paduka. Okay, that is the importance of Paduka of Rama. Now, what is the relationship between Paduka and this? There at Nandigram, what Bharata is doing, Bharata is having the Paduka on the throne. What he does is every day goes to the Sharayu. He's on the banks of Sharayu Nadi. He gets a pot full of this thing and does Abhishek on the Paduka. That Abhishek Tirtha, it seems, flows back into Sharayu. That has sanctified Sharayu. That Sharayu goes and mixes into the ocean. So the ocean is now full of Paduka Tirtha of 14 long years and hence is more powerful than Rama. Okay? So Lakshmana is now afraid that the Samudra Raja probably is stronger than Rama and hence Rama will not be able to win over Samudra Raja. This is an emotional part. This is a Ramayana written by a saint and it has to be enjoyed and appreciated in that sphere. Okay. So basically what has happened is now gets a longer arrow and is now strung and pulled the bow but is not left it. At that split moment, Samudra Raja comes out. Okay. And he says, Pahimam, Pahimam, asking for pardon. He comes and falls at Rama's feet and he says, I'm sorry for taking such a long time, but I was trying to find a solution and that is the reason I took this time. So Rama says, why? What is the problem? Why don't you give us a way? Why don't you either freeze or kind of split yourself and we can walk through? Samudra Raja says this with all politeness and humbleness. He says, I would have loved to do that. I want to help you, but Rama, you have to understand that I have been given a duty to be in liquid state. Okay? There are 10 times more of flora and fauna that is there in the sea, life forms. If I freeze, all of them will die. Right? If I change my nature of splitting, I am not supposed to do that. I have been given a job in Prakriti to be liquid and to be in a flowing state. And if I were to ever change my nature, it will cause havoc, right? I'll be going against my dharma. You yourself are a Purushottama. I'm sure you'll appreciate Rama. I would want to help you, but I cannot pay heed to this particular request. Rama appreciates that. Rama says, yes, you cannot freeze yourself, you cannot give me a path, but what other help can you do? So he says that is exactly why it took 3 days. I wanted to search a place where you can build a bridge and then cross over. And that place is about a few 100 kilometers from here. Now what is that place? That place has a natural ridge. Now what is a ridge? A ridge is basically you have a seabed, and a ridge is basically a swell, a land swell on the seabed. Okay, it's an undulated place, right? I mean, like land, you have mountains, hillocks, small hillocks, and then you have plain land, and then you have seashore or whatever. Similarly, even under the sea, you have such geography. So there is a natural ridge that exists between India and Lanka. All you have to do is just kind of build a particular bridge over that. The help that I can do actively is I will ensure that I don't break it, and I'll hold it from both the sides in a manner that you can use it as a bridge to go and come. Now where is this bridge? So he guides them to that particular spot. Now this spot is close to Rameshwar. I don't know what it was called then. It is called Rameshwaram because Rama did Ishwara's puja there. Okay, that is why it's called Rameshwaram. So he kind of sends a Google pin on his WhatsApp and he says, okay, trace this is where it is. So Rama and Vanaras, everybody go there and they find a natural ridge over there. Before starting this thing, Samudra Raja has also told, amongst your group, you have Vishwakarma's son Nala. Okay, Vishwakarma's son Nala is being gifted. Whatever he puts together stays together because he's an architect and he's an excellent planner. Use his help to build a bridge. So all of them follow the Google pin. They come over to Rameshwaram. Having come to Rameshwaram, Rama says, before we begin a great work of this kind, I should do a puja to my Aradhya Dev. Who's Rama's Aradhya Dev? Aradhya Dev is Shiva. So he does a puja of Shiva there. Because Rama did the puja of Shiva there, that Ishwar, that Shiva came to be known as Rameshwar. Okay, Ishwar of Rama is Rameshwar. We've covered this even in Mahapariva story. The way Kashi Yatra is done is first you don't directly set off to Kashi. You have to first go to Rameshwaram. You have to get a linga done in the sand from there. You then need to come to Prayag, Allahabad, submerge, immerse it into the Triveni Sangam, then come to Kashi, take bath, collect Ganga, come back to Rameshwaram, and then pour that into the as a linga abhishek in Rameshwaram. Then complete your Kashi Yatra. Okay, so that important place is Rameshwaram. This Rameshwaram is where they reach. Quickly, the bridge that links the mainland India to Rameshwaram. Rameshwaram is like an island. That which links the bridge is today called as the Pamban Bridge. Okay, the reason why it is called as the Pamban Bridge is because it goes through a village called Pamban. Okay, Pamban is a Tamil word. Pamban means snake. Literally means Pambu means snake. Okay, it has been named after Lakshmana. Okay, because Lakshmana is Adishesha's avatar. That village has been named as even today Lakshman is also called as Pamban Swami. Okay, so that particular place is dedicated to Lakshmana. Just like there is Rameshwaram which is dedicated to Rama, there is a Pamban village which is dedicated to Lakshmana, and there is a bridge which crosses from the mainland is also called as Pamban Bridge. Thought we'll give a background to that. Now they start building the bridge. Okay. Give me 2 minutes, let me explain this bridge the way Valmiki has told, and then I will cover how it has been excavated by NASA and other archaeologists and how it has been now proven that it is not a natural formation, it is a man-made formation. So let me come that. Valmiki has actually spent 25 to 30 shlokas on actually explaining how this bridge has been built. And this is what he has said, which has been proven now by NASA and other archaeologists. So he said what was first put. So there was a natural ridge that was there. Okay. Over the natural ridge, they cut a lot of trees. Okay. Lot of trees and tree barks were put in place. Over those tree, once the tree was there, over those tree at the base, then they put huge boulders. After those huge boulders, when you put huge boulders, the contours are not same. So you have gaps in between. So they put smaller rocks. And then between the smaller rocks, smaller pebbles, and between the smaller pebbles, the sand. And that sand was put by the squirrels, the famous squirrels that we know who helped Rama in building the bridge, right? Rama was appreciative of them and he kind of drove his hand on the squirrels, which is what we see as the stripes behind the squirrels, is our belief. In Marathi, there is a saying called Kharicha Vata. Okay, Khari means squirrel and Vata means contribution. A squirrel's contribution to, I mean, when you say, oh, the way you conducted this entire program, amazing, your contribution it's amazing. So out of humility, generally a person will say, no, this is nothing, this is just Kharicha Vata, just a squirrel's contribution. But squirrel's contribution was that great. It ensured that the sand, so what they did, they used to wet their body, they will roll on the sand and then they will go and dry it off on the bridge. Okay, that is the support that even squirrels did, only to show that how the entire nature contributed to building that particular bridge. That is how this bridge was built. As per Valmiki Ramayana, it is apparently 100 kosa length and 10 kosas in breadth. Okay, so 1:10. Okay. Now let's come to the archaeological findings. The first is, the archaeological finding says that it is 35 miles if I am not wrong and 3.5 miles width, which is 1:10. Okay, so that is the first finding of archaeology. The next, they actually did a cut section, cross section, and they found what is it made up of. So the first, at the bottom, they found it is a natural reef. It is a natural part of the land. Then came a coral reef. Okay. Now what is this coral reef? Is basically what happens is, if for example there is something that is put into the sea for a very long time, there is an automatic coral reef that gets formed on it. Okay. So it is a tree bark which has been submerged into the water. There is a reef that has got formed into that. So there was a ridge, there is a coral reef, and then they actually found rocks, big boulders, rocks, and then small stones. Now where did these rocks come from? So they did an archaeological survey and they found some of the rocks have come as far as from Bihar. Okay. So when I was doing my interiors, I didn't find any laminate, Sanmaika that we put on the wood, plywood. I didn't find any appealing one very close to my house. In order to get a good one, I went right up to Kurla, right? So I myself can go to Kurla to get a sheet of Sanmaika. The Vanaras went to Bihar to get the right size of boulders, and for them it is not difficult, they just fly and get it back, right? So there are actually trees which have come from different parts of the country, Bihar, as far as Bihar, where the kind of texture of the rock, okay? These rocks have been put, and then there were stones. This bridge held. The sea, the Samudra Raja's promise is that I will hold it and I will not destroy it, has held for eons. There have been proofs that a Sufi saint walked from India to Lanka by foot on this Adam's Bridge. Today it's called as Adam's Bridge. It is actually Nala Setu because it was built by Nala, or it is Rama Setu because it was for Rama that it was built. For us it is either Nala Setu or Rama Setu. The Rama Setu was crossed on foot in 17th century, as close as 17th century. Apparently in 17th century there is a historical record that there was a tsunami which kind of destroyed a part of this particular bridge. Okay, but even today from satellite, if you were to see, you can see a string of pearls, okay, which is linking the Pak Strait. Okay, that's what it's called. So which links from Rameshwaram to the north of, not typically the north, the northwest of Lanka. This is the bridge which was manually built, okay, and today the archaeologists have confirmed that this is not a natural formation, it is a man-made formation. We give that benefit of doubt to these modern day scientists. Technically it is not man-made, it is Vanara made, okay, but that's okay. It is artificially made. They will not come to believe, they have already come to believe that it's man-made. I think that itself is a long journey that they have travelled. We always knew that it was man-made or Vanara made. This bridge, then they start crossing. Okay, they have built this bridge and they start crossing. Rama and Lakshmana, you might have seen this beautiful photo where Hanuman has picked up Rama on one shoulder and Lakshmana on the other shoulder. Everybody is shouting Jai Shri Ram, Jai Shri Lakshman, and they are crossing the entire the bridge, and they have reached on the other side. I have just got 5 more minutes, but I think I'll take some more time because I want to cover all the events that are building up to the war, so that in the next session I will take up the war. Okay, anyways, I'll cover since I'm on that topic. I'm actually falling short by a week because next Saturday happens to be the last Saturday before Ganpati Chaturthi, and I didn't want to have sessions during a festival time because all of you all will be busy with guests and Ganpati Puja. Some might have 5, some might have 7 days, 10 days. So I don't want to kind of infringe into that. So I wanted to finish off Ramayana before the beautiful Ganpati Parva starts. But I have only 1 weekend. So the request is that if I can finish off, and I might need 2 sessions or maybe 1.5 sessions, I'll try and finish off one on Saturday evening and one on Sunday evening, if that is okay with you all. We'll anyway discuss this once the session is over. I thought I'll just put it into your mind. So Rama and the entire gang of Vanaras have reached Lanka on the Lanka's side of the shore. Rama doesn't enter the city. So I remember Arjun from our group had asked whether Rama entered Lanka city. So he doesn't enter. He remains outside because that is his promise. That is Rama. Why? What makes Rama Rama is because even in his distress he follows dharma. Even in his anxious moment, even when he's down and his chips are down and up against wall, he still ensures that he follows his promise, right? It is not like convenient. Today I am so much in distress, it's okay, I don't follow my promise, it's okay. No, a promise, who's there to see? Nobody, right? He still is following his promise that he gave to Kaikeyi. Doesn't enter the city. So still outside the city, they kind of established their entire camp, and Ravana sees from his high tower, he can just see an ocean of Vanaras everywhere, 70,000 army size, everybody is there and now battle ready with their maces and boulders and trees and whatever, swords and everything. Now what happens is, as he's seeing the Vanaras there, he turns and comes back into his palace. His grandfather, his maternal grandfather, Sumali's elder brother, okay? So his maternal grandfather, his name is Malyavan, okay? He comes and meets Ravana and he tries to drill some wisdom into his head. He says, Ravana, you have to understand, if not for the sake of the Asura clan, if not for your own family, at least for your own safety, give back Sita. What you have done is a grave mistake. If you had a problem with Rama and Lakshmana, you should have fought. You are a warrior. Do you want me to tell you that you are supposed to wage war and not abduct ladies? What is it that you have done? It's a grave mistake, and look at the Vanaras that are standing outside. Let me remind you, is what Malyavan says. You had asked for a boon, and I don't know whether you remember, you had missed out on humans and Vanaras because you thought they are low life. Right? Remember, who are standing outside are humans and Vanaras. So your boon is not going to work. You are no more immortal. Okay? So remember, this probably is Vishnu himself who's come to punish you for all your sins, Ravana. Now is the time. Now there still is a time for you to ask for pardon. Give back Sita with full respect and ask for pardon. We might end up saving all our lives. You are putting everybody's life to jeopardy, not for a war. You are putting life in jeopardy for your whims and fancies, which is wrong, which is what Malyavan says. Ravana feels bad that his own grandfather is saying all this, and he says, well, even you are not going to support me, that is wrong. He says, I am going to support you, I will be there with you in the war, but what you have done is wrong. Nevertheless, understand that. And he walks away. Ravana now understands, he has now started understanding that he truly probably has done something wrong. His wife is telling, Kumbhakarna is told, Vibhishna is told, his own grandfather is telling, that Shuka, his own head of spy also is gone and telling the same thing. He is now understanding that probably he's done a mistake, but he is not able to mend his ways. There's a Marathi saying, it says, Kalte hai, pan valat nahi. Okay, which means, I understand that I've done a mistake, but I'm not able to mend my ways. I'm not able to bend myself to reforming myself. Kalte hai, I know what I'm doing is wrong, but valat nahi hai. It's not bending into me. I'm not able to mend my ways. Is what is now Ravana experiencing. He is not able to mend his ways. Why? It's because of ego. So answering the first question, we keep doing mistakes, we become Ravana. Even if we want to do Sharanagati, we are not able to do because our ego will come and stand in between. Right? And that is what is happening with Ravana. Now, as Ravana is watching from his high tower, he kind of every day comes and starts watching from his high tower, what are the battle arrangements these people are doing. At the same time, Rama, Lakshmana, Vibhishana, Sugriva, Hanuman, they all kind of climb a small hillock. Okay, Suvela is the name of the hillock. Look at the amount of detailing Valmiki has done. He's kind of explained each geography and the names as well. So they are not fiction of mind, they are actually what happened. So Suvela is the name of the hillock on which they stand, and now Rama is giving a motivational talk to his Vanaras. We are here for dharma, we have to fight for truth, and remember, never change or get into a disguise as you fight as Vanaras. So all Vanaras will fight as Vanaras, and the only humans there are what? Rama, Lakshmana and Vibhishana, right? So we will fight as humans, we will not change or fight in disguise, because all Asuras are capable of using magic and changing the disguise and fighting, but because they think us as low life, they will never take our form. Okay, so they will never come and fight a war as monkey or as human or men. So they will fight as anything else but as us. So it becomes easy to wage a war. So you know who's your enemy, right? So ensure that you do that. We are fighting a war for truth. Okay, that is what Rama says. So he kind of gives all this motivational talk, and as he finishes and expects now Sugriva to give his pep talk, Sugriva sees Ravana at the high tower. In a spur of a moment, without thinking, Sugriva takes a leap towards Ravana and lands on Ravana's high tower and knocks him down, and they get into a wrestling fight. A huge wrestling fight that happens. Ravana also is a Malayuddha Visharad. Okay, that is what is the Sanskrit name. Malayuddha means wrestling, arms wrestling. Okay, Visharad means the best. Just as Sugriva is a Malayuddha Visharad, Ravana also is a Malayuddha Visharad. Okay, so both are fighting and there is no respite. Now Ravana understands that he is going to find it difficult to beat Sugriva. So what he does is he starts using magic. He kind of appears here, then suddenly appears there, and is trying to defeat Sugriva. Sugriva now understands that it will be difficult for him to beat a magical Ravana. So he catches hold of his kirit, crown, okay, and then jumps back to where Rama is. All Vanaras are very happy. Jai Sugriva, you've done such a great feat. You taught a good lesson to Ravana. Now we will know that what he's up against. Rama is also happy, but Rama then subtly says, takes him to the corner and says, boss, you're not supposed to be doing all this. You are supposed to keep us in faith. You have to take us into confidence before you do all this. What had happened if you had got killed? Right? If you had got hurt, if you had got maimed, your hand had got cut, the whole morale of the army would have fallen. You are the king of Vanaras, right? I am not the king. You are the leader of those Vanaras. If something had happened to you, the whole morale would have been down. We would have lost the war even before it began, right? So no new process put in place. Okay, the process is now updated. SOP, no impromptu decisions. It will be discussed with 4 people and only consensus will be taken and acted upon. Right? Only a committee will decide. So no impromptu decisions. Sugriva accepts his mistake and he says, I'm sorry, I will not henceforth do that. Then Rama says, we have to give peace a chance. Yes, we are here for war, but we have to give peace a chance. We'll have to give one last chance to Ravana, saying, surrender Sita, give back Sita and surrender yourself and live peacefully. Okay, if you are ready to do all of this, then we are okay to take back Sita and not wage a war and kill all of your Asuras. So they choose. Hanuman says, don't worry, I will go. Rama says, no, not every time. They also need to know that we are not only dependent on Hanuman, we also have others who are equally powerful. So Rama says, no. Okay, we'll have Angad, that is Vali's son, go and deliver the message. Angad, of course, is a young guy, very, very full of Josh. He says, yes, I will go and deliver the needful message. What Angad does is it springs into air, goes and straight drops into the court where Ravana is discussing his war plan, and suddenly says Angada standing there. He says, Angada comes and introduces himself. He says, I am Vali's son Angada. You of course know who Vali is. I am his son Angada, and I have come here with a message from Rama saying I am come in peace first. The message is that give back Sita with all respect and fall at Rama's feet. We will ensure that you are not harmed. If you value your life, you will do that. If you don't value your life, we are anyway battle ready. We'll come and completely destroy you. That is the message that Rama has given. That is the message that he gives. Ravana is extremely angry. This small Vanar, where did he come from? What do you think what you are doing? So he orders somebody to attack him. So there are two versions on this. The first one, the simpler one, is where somebody is ordered to attack on him. Angada springs, breaks the top dome and springs back. Okay, goes back to his camp. He's delivered the message, his job is done. But I like the second version, and that is a more beautiful one. Okay, he says, when his message is delivering his message, he says, we will ensure that you are killed and all your Asura clan is driven out of this Lanka. So Ravana says, who are you to drive out? We will drive you out of Lanka, is what Ravana answers. Angad says, what will you drive me out? Try and just shake my leg from this place. Okay? So what Angad does is, he places his right leg on the floor with a lot of strength. And he says, anybody from your team, if able to shake my leg even an inch, I will convince Rama that we will go back. Okay, this is a promise that Angada does even without asking Rama. Okay? This is called Angad Ka Pair. I don't know, all those who probably did schooling during my time, we used to have this Hindi lesson called Angad Ka Pair. Okay? Beautiful lesson. I'm narrating the story from there. So he puts his leg. Then the common people start trying their luck. Then the sentries, the basic army, the Jawans of their team, of Ravana's team, they try to shake, not able to do. Then the army generals try, the courtiers, the ministers, everybody. Ravana's sons, including Indrajit, he comes and tries, not able to budge Angad's leg at all. Ravana himself comes down from his throne and is about to catch hold of his leg. Angad draws himself back and he says, no, Ravana, if at all you have to fall at somebody's feet, it is not me, you have to fall at Rama's feet. Okay. So Ravana then suddenly realizes what he was about to do. So see, if you have to shake somebody out of that place, you have to hold the feet, right? Ravana, without knowing what he is doing, is come to shake his feet and fall at Angad's feet. Angad withdraws himself and he says, no, I am not a person whose feet you are supposed to fall. If at all you want pardon, you have to go and fall at Rama's feet. And just as about Ravana is about to attack Angada jumps, springs and goes back to where Rama is. And he delivers the message saying that Ravana is in no mood for peace, there is no reconciliation that is happening. War is the only way forward. As Angada has come and done this, Ravana also sends his spies. And I'll quickly kind of cover this part. Ravana also sends his spies. Those spies, they kind of mingle around as Vanaras into the army. They find out what arms and all. Vibhishna of course knows who's those two people are. They catch hold of him. Rama again comes and he tells no, they are just doing their job. Just let them go. So they are very thrilled that their lives is spared. Why? Because spies generally lives are not spared, right? Spies generally kill them. But Rama ensures that they are sent back. These spies come back and tell the message to Ravana. Again, same message, how beautiful Rama is and how compassionate he is. We were caught by Vibhishna, but he ensured that our lives has got saved. I think you should let go of Sita. Forget Shuka, even his assistants are now saying that. Okay? So Ravana is kind of really being driven to crazy levels now. His anger is gone beyond words. Now what he does is, again comes and stands into his high tower to look at the preparation. His ministers also come. Now what his ministers say is critical. Okay? The ministers are now telling him, now introducing him to each of the people there. So that handsome looking man, full muscular structure is Rama. The dark person is Rama, the fair person is Lakshmana. The person next is Sugriva, that person is Hanuman who came and you know what he did. Okay? And that is your brother Vibhishna. Okay, and they are explaining all of this, and they are seeing the morale of all the Vanaras, and they say the morale seems to be very high, Ravana. At the same time, in contrast, the morale of your army is at its nadir. Nadir means at its low. He asks why. The ministers tell him the reason why their morale is high is because they know they are fighting for the truth. They know they are fighting for dharma, while your army knows that they are fighting for your whims. They know that you are fighting for your stubbornness. They know that you are wrong in what you have done. It is the same army that supported in fighting the Devas and you won. Because at that time they were fighting a war to win. But now they are fighting a war for your whim and fancies. You are bound to lose. This is what their ministers himself, Ravana's ministers tell to Ravana. Ravana says, get out. So all the ministers walk off. Ravana is seeing, okay, Rama, and is staring at Rama. As he's seeing, there is a small Vanar, okay, who comes very lovingly with lot of respect, lot of affection in its eyes, and giving some small thing to eat, and Rama has taken that in his hand and very lovingly drives his hand on the head and let go of the Vanara and eats it. When Ravana sees this, that is the first time he realizes, my God, what a type of leader Rama is. There is so much amount of love, affection and respect in the eyes of Vanaras towards Rama, while when I look at my army, I can only see fear. Okay, I can't see respect. Respect can never be demanded, it has to be commanded, right? By your behavior. Now Ravana for the first time feels everybody seems to love Rama, and it is out of that love that respect is flowing. Well, I can see some respect, but my respect is coming out of fear. Okay, so he realizes, but same, kalte par vadat nahi. So he understands it, but he can't bend his ways, right? So now he goes ahead and he starts planning for his war. But as he plans for his war, just give me 2 minutes, the last bit before war. He says, let me try and do a particular magic act and let me see if I can dissuade Rama from getting into a war. So what he does is, he thinks if Sita was to openly accept Ravana's proposal, Rama would get dejected and walk off. Okay, that is his plan. So how do you make Sita accept Ravana's proposal? Is to show Sita that Rama is dead. Right? So if somehow we can prove that Rama is dead, he can then prove that, see, anyway Rama is dead, so why don't you marry me? Anyway you are a widow, you might as well marry me and live a life happily. Okay, that was his plan. So what he does, he catches hold of one sorcerer. He had a sorcerer in his team called Vidyut Jivha. Okay, literally means lightning tongued person. Okay, Vidyut Jivha. He had a special skill. Now what was his skill? His skill was like that, that 3D printing, right? That like the one we saw in MI, Mission Impossible, where you make a mask like somebody else, right? So he had that skill. So what that skill basically did is, he can create a face of a person which looks exactly like that person, okay? The only trick over here is, the person who's come to order that, right, who's asking for that service, has to remain in close vicinity. If that person walks away from that close vicinity, that particular thing that has got, the contraption that has got created will vanish into thin air. Okay, this is the only issue with that particular skill. So Ravana comes to the Vidyut Jiva and he says, you make a head of Rama looking same like Rama and get it when I am asking you to get it. So they said, okay, I will do it. So he goes to Ashokvan, Ravana goes to Ashokvana and he talks to Sita and he says, my people had gone to the other side of the shore. He is not even told that these guys are already in this side of the shore. Okay, my people had gone to that side of the shore and they killed everybody, including your husband. See, I have got the head of your husband Rama. And he calls Vidyut Jiva. Vidyut Jiva happily, gleefully gets that head. Sita, the moment she sees, she sings, she starts crying. My God, my Rama has got beheaded. As they're having this discussion, one of the sentries, one of Ravana's army, comes and calls Ravana, saying that there is an urgent meeting that has been held in the court and you've been called. Okay, there's a war planning that is going on and you've been called. So Ravana, without thinking, walks away. The moment he is no more in the close vicinity, that head that has got created vanishes into thin air. So this Vidyut Jiva also laughs and then goes off. Now Sita is not able to understand whether she saw an original head, because she is in distress. She is not able to believe whether the head was, whether he got beheaded or whether the head was a false thing, whether it is a myth. At that particular time, there is a demoness, there's a Rakshasi called Sarama who comes, who's an assistant to Trijata. She comes and tells, you don't have to worry at all, child. Rama is not dead. It is not just that Rama is not dead. Rama and the entire Vanara army are already on Lanka's side, and the war is going to begin anytime. Just as she finishes this particular sentence, it's morning and the war bugles are on. The conches are blown. The Vanaras are already trumpeting they've already put up the war trumpet, and now the war is going to begin. What I'll do is I'll take a break now, so that in the next one day or 1.5 days, we will quickly cover the war. We will not get into the war is what we had anyway agreed upon. But there are quite a few things that happen during the war. There is this Sarpa Astra that gets thrown and how Garuda comes to help. Then there is of course the famous Astra that Indrajit leaves and which leaves Lakshmana unconscious, right? And how the Sanjeevani was got, and the stories around that, and also the Ahiravan Mahiravan and the introduction to the Panchamukhi Hanuman, okay? The most powerful being in Prakriti, okay, is Panchamukhi Hanuman, right? I'll also cover on that, and then try and cover the end of the war. And of course, I'm sure a lot of people, there will be an itching question on why Rama made Sita go through the Agni Pariksha, right? I will try and cover the logic around that as well in the next 1.5 days that we go ahead. Is there anything that you would want to ask? Otherwise, is Saturday and Sunday okay with all of you all? Saturday 7 p.m. and Sunday 7 p.m. is it okay? Yeah, we are good? Great. Because I would love to finish off before the Ganpati starts, so that all of us, then I also take a Ganpati holiday like we used to have in school, and then we reassemble with saint stories once the Ananta Chaturdashi is done. The Sunday next to that, then we can begin a nice story, preferably Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Yes? Great. Thanks a lot, Hemani ji. Thanks, nice of you. We'll do Hanuman Chalisa and close today's session. Yeah? Okay. Shri Guru Charana Saroj Raja Nijamana Mukura Sudhari Varanau Raghuvar Bimala Jasu Jodhaya Kupalachari Buddhihina Tanu Janike Sumiro Pavan Kumar Bala Buddhi Vidya The Umohe Haravu Klesha Vikar जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर जय कपी सतिहु लोक उजागर रामदूत अतुलित बल धामा अंजनी पुत्र पवन सुत नामा महावीर विक्रम बजरंगी कुमति निवार सुमति के संगी कंचन वरण विराज सुबेसा कानन कुंडल कुंचित केसा हाथ वज्र और ध्वजा विराजे कांधे मूंज जनेऊ साजे शंकर सुवन केसरी नंदन तेज प्रताप महाजगवंदन विद्यावान गुणी अति चातुर राम काज करिबे को आतुर प्रभु चरित्र सुनिबे को रसिया राम लखन सीता मन बसिया सूक्ष्म रूप धरि सियहि दिखावा विकट रूप धरि लंक जरावा भीम रूप धरि असुर संहारे चंद्र के काज सवारे लाए सजीवन लखन जियाए श्री रघुवीर हर्षि उर लाए रघुपति कीन्ही बहुत बढ़ाई तुम मम प्रिय भरत ही सम भाई सहस बदन तुमरो यश गावे अस कहि श्रीपति कंठ लगावे सनकादिक ब्रह्मादि मुनीसा नारद सारद सहित अहीसा जम कुबेर दिक्पाल जहाँ ते कवि कोविद कहि सके कहाँ ते तुम उपकार सुग्रीवहि कीन्हा राम मिलाए राजपद दीना तुमरो मंत्र विभीषण माना लंकेश्वर भय सब जग जाना जुग सहस्र योजन पर भानु लील्योताहि मधुर फल जानु प्रभु मुद्रिका मेलि मुख माही जल दिलांग गए अचरज नाही दुर्गम काज जगत के जेते सुगम अनुग्रह तुम्हारे तेते राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे होत न आज्ञा बिनु पैसारे सब सुख लहै तुम्हारी सरना तुम रक्षक काहू को डरना आपन तेज समारो आपे तीनों लोक हांकते कापे भूत पिशाच निकट नहीं आवे महावीर जब जब नाम सुनावे। नासे रोग हरे सब पीड़ा, जपत निरंतर हनुमत बीरा। संकट ते हनुमान छुड़ावे, मन क्रम वचन ध्यान जो लावे। सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा, तिनके काज सकल तुम साजा। और मनोरथ जो कोई लावे, सोई अमित जीवन फल पावे। चारों जुग परताप तुम्हारा, है प्रसिद्ध जगत उजियारा। साधु संत के तुम रखवारे, असुर निकंदन राम दुलारे। अष्ट सिद्धि नव निधि के दाता, असवर दीन जानकी माता। राम रसायन तुम्हारे पासा, सदा रहो रघुपति के दासा। तुम्हारे भजन राम को पावे, जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावे। अंत काल रघुवर पुर जाई, जहाँ जन्म हरि भक्त कहाई।
और देवता
चित्तन धरई, हनुमत से ही सर्व सुख करई। संकट कटै मिटै सब पीड़ा, जो सुमिरै हनुमत बल बीरा। जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई, कृपा करहु गुरुदेव की नाई। ये शत बार पाठ कर कोई, छूटहि बंदी महासुख होई। जो यह पढ़े हनुमान चालीसा, होय सिद्धि साखी गौरीसा। तुलसीदास सदा हरि चेरा, की जय नाथ हृदय मह डेरा। पवन तनय संकट हरन, मंगल मूर्ति रूप। राम लखन सीता सहित, हृदय बसहु सुरभूप। सियावर रामचंद्र की
जय।
के बोलो हनुमान की।
जय।
धन्यवाद।